So, Jarom, welcome to the people of Utah.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited, man. So, tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you're doing here in Utah right now.
Yes. All right. Thank you for asking. I'm from Payson, and I've lived there essentially my whole life, except to, serve a mission and to attend a coding boot camp up in Lehigh, Dev Mountain.
I've heard of that, yeah.
Heard of it? Mm-hmm. I learned how to do software quality assurance, and then proceeded to lose interest. And
How it goes.
it is how it goes, and better to spend $7,000, figuring it out rather than to go much deeper.
Yeah, a 4-year degree, yeah.
For sure.
That's very cool.
But as for myself, I'm not currently attending school, and I have no plans or concrete plans for a bachelor's degree or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Currently, I teach computers and STEM at an elementary school.
That's awesome. Okay, how long have you been teaching for?
I just completed my 3rd year.
Right on. Okay. So you're from Payson, you said?
Payson.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Utah County guy. That's sweet.
A little bit, yeah.
Gotcha. So when you did the Dev Mountain Boot Camp and stuff, why did you end up not liking the software quality assurance thing?
I think there may be multiple reasons. Mm-hmm. And one of them was that when I went, it was right at the beginning of COVID. In fact, half of my program was remote because it was like right when COVID hit, right in the middle of March, right? Mm-hmm. And at the time I was going through, I had returned from my mission early due to anxiety and that had just kind of continued into my adult years, figuring stuff out. And because of that, I didn't necessarily have the wherewithal to continue with this thing that I had decided on.
Yeah.
The job search in particular was discouraging.
That's a great word. That's it came to mind for me too. Gotcha.
So I think because of the job search and just, I had learned the skill and thought I was perfectly qualified for an entry-level job. That's what the program was intended to do. But then interview after interview of, we're looking for someone with a little more experience. And I just said, do I even care that much? Like, yeah. And it came to the point where I just needed any job. And so I got a job as a customer service representative for a company that no longer exists. But that lasted for a couple of years. That also ended with the circumstances were interesting, but I won't bore you with them.
Okay.
Ended up, mutually deciding it was not a position that was suitable for me.
Yeah.
And it was that summer that I applied to be computer teacher at the school that I now work at.
That's awesome. Do you like it? Been a couple of years?
There are definitely things that I like about it and other things that are really challenging.
Sure.
The environment is really great to work in, and my coworkers are lovely, like not dramatic people, It's a female-dominated environment, and, I've heard things can get catty, and largely speaking, it hasn't been.
That's great.
So that is to say female coworkers and not female students.
Right, yes.
But no, everyone on my team who are the planning time technicians are all girls. And they're all married as well.
Right on.
As you can imagine.
Yeah.
Some of the things that are really hard about teaching are that I see all but one class in the school every week. And so just having 500 students in 4 days it's challenging. Like it's not an insurmountable challenge. And I certainly would rather deal with one particularly naughty class than for 40 minutes a week rather than to have them 5 days a week for the entire school year, right? All day.
Good point.
The hours have also been really nice for going home and doing personal projects or just learning
Yeah.
whatever I want to do and get into video editing with my stream that I do with my buddy, and we've just like taken our VODs and basically made them into like YouTube poops. I don't know if you're
Right
out
on.
of your way.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. That's so fun.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to do that, and I think I might need a new question. I've been rambling for a while.
Oh, you're good. That's what I like to hear, man. I just love to, just shoot the breeze with you and get to know you more as a person in Utah. So that's cool. One thing you mentioned, dude, that I had experienced myself too, with like the job search in tech is just so brutal, discouraging, like you said. Mm-hmm. It's so funny that like these entry level jobs are like 3 to 5 years of experience. It's like, wait a minute, where do you get the experience of this is an entry level job, right? And it's so competitive, dude. There's like jobs on LinkedIn. It's like posted an hour ago, 100 people applied. I'm like, okay, like
well, my options are I can either like, get a job that I don't need a degree for, or I can, continue to pursue this skill and get other certifications to add on to my experience.
Exactly.
Or I can start my own thing, which is what I've been trying to do, trying to figure out like what am I good at? What kind of comes naturally to me.
Yeah. What do you mean start your own thing? Like your own business, your own like computer thingy? What do you got?
I'd like to think that I am not a computer oriented person. Even though I like totally am. Like I'm like I can do so many things on computers. It's like if you like look at my list on paper, you'd be like, you're a techie. What are you talking about? Yeah. But what really matters to me and what I want to do with my life is to work with people.
That's cool.
What living the dream looks like for me would actually be like talking to a group of people on a stage. I love public speaking. Okay. But I don't know if that's weird to say. It's kind of
no, that's cool.
Less common interest.
Yeah, that's not very common. It's like a big fear for most people, so that's interesting.
It is. Might talk about that more later, but talking about social skills is like what I want to do.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
I like that. And usually people who are like really good with, I don't know, maybe it's just a stereotype. People who are really good with like, tech stuff and computers and coding are usually not the big public speaking type, right? I feel like stereotypically it's usually the people who like to be by themselves and just be with the computer, right?
Sure.
The fact that you can have both, that's really cool actually. And so what you're doing, right, is you're interacting with hundreds of kids and you have your computer stuff with it. So like, you're in a good spot and it's a good experience for you to grow and stuff. I like that.
Yeah. In a way, I'm kind of perfect for the job that I'm in right now, but it's not giving me enough.
Right.
Where I can't even afford to move out of my parents' house, right? Let alone like do the things that I want to do. I want to be a provider for a family,
Yeah.
I want to be able to give to my community.
I like that. So when you mention like public speaking and that sort of thing, have you always been interested in that? Did something spark that? What kind of public speaking events and experience do you have?
Well, thank you. That's a really good question. I started breaking out of kind of my bubble in about 2021. That's when I joined my ward, my young single adult ward, and started to really improve in my social anxiety, like overcoming. And what else? I started like going to game nights, and then started having karaoke parties.
Nice. Yeah. Great way to get out of social anxiety. Singing in front of people is tough for anybody.
It is extremely hard. Yeah. But just like doing it over and over. And I remember the very first karaoke party I had, I was like, I recognize people are coming to this and they're not going to be any more comfortable than I am. So I'm freaking hosting,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
And so I just decided to do like the goofiest song I could possibly do. Secret Area from Battle Block Theater.
Nice. I actually have played that game, so I do know that. Gosh. That's awesome, dude.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the premise of having like 2.5 minutes of gibberish memorized and then performing that and really silly and like really lightened up the mood and got people like, oh yeah, this is like, it's not supposed to be serious. This isn't a competition.
That's true. It does require somebody to kind of put themselves out there to really set the tone. Because if the first person up there is like some great singer, it's like, oh man, now the vibes of the karaoke is like a competition almost.
Right.
That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah. That's why I usually try to go first and then trust,
So
I'm a decent singer. I'd like to think I am. But I try not to, make it too serious.
yeah, that's right. Well, that's interesting. You said you're a decent singer, right? But you also are big into voice acting, right?
Voice acting, yeah.
Yeah, and so you told me, you were on a podcast for that. How long have you been into that? What's your skills like? And tell us more about that show you did.
Oh my goodness. I kind of want to start by telling you about my morning routine.
Okay.
I wish this might be a really weird place to start, but
This is great.
feel like it's so important. At the end of last year, I had a friend in my young single adult ward who's a female, and I asked her out on a date, and she said no. And so this was, a point of friction, you might say, where we weren't like on bad terms. We could still talk to each other, but I wasn't like,
The vibes are a little different from that
Exactly.
moment. I'm with you. Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit different. And she, for whatever reason, continued to make a reasonably strong effort to be my friend and to make sure I felt included and comfortable. Because the reason for, her asking, or for her rejecting my offer, was not necessarily because she thought I was weird or creepy, but because it was just like she wasn't in the right place to be dating at the time. So this brings me to my morning routine. She recommends this book to me called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. The premise of the book is that there are essentially six things that you should do every morning to become the person that you need to be to live the life you truly want to live.
Wow, I've never heard of this book. It's kind of self-help books, so.
You like self-help books?
Yeah, relatively. I'm bigger into audiobooks, dude. I don't know. I like to listen to them when I drive, but.
It's good stuff.
So what's it called again?
The Miracle Morning.
Okay, gotcha.
And the six things that you should do every morning are a period of silence or meditation, affirmations, which, side note, a lot of people think affirmations are hokey, but if you do them correctly, they're not.
Okay.
They are effective. Visualizing or mentally rehearsing your day. I might also add on to that, you visualize things as you would have them and not as they are.
Yes, you don't want to have like a negative, like, I get that. You don't want to visualize something bad happening and
Exactly.
it's bad for your mind. Yeah, I'm with you.
Exactly. The last three things are exercise, reading, and writing. As for myself, I keep a prayer journal right on my couch. So in case I have a thought that I need to write down, it's there and I can. But I always make an effort to record in my journal at the end of the day to make sure that, well, journaling is just so good for you.
Yes.
I don't know if I need to sell it to you, but yeah, I make an effort to write usually at the end of the day.
I wish I had such better routines, man. Like, I feel like all the self-help books, all the big whatever names and people out there talk about the importance of having routines and journaling and stuff. And I'm very inconsistent, but I acknowledge how great it is, and I try to do it when I can. But this morning routine, these six things, what is like the timeline? How long does it take you to have your perfect morning and do all these things? Is it like an hour long? Is it less than that? More?
As for myself,
Yes.
and the book definitely talks about like you can customize it to your own routine. I spend about 3.5 hours to not only do those things, but to feed myself and to shower and to practice piano
Nice.
or to work on a personal project before I start work.
So, yeah, let's say, because you also are working. So what time are you waking up to do all this, man?
My workday starts at 11 in the morning.
Okay, so it's not
And so,
too big.
I'm not super rigorous. I would like to join the 5 a.m. club.
I have heard of that book and that concept as well.
I'm still working on that, but
It's not ridiculously early. That's
not ridiculously. No,
Okay.
it's usually been about 7.
okay. Cool. Cool. A very solid routine, man. I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
awesome.
It's brought so much enrichment to my life. Even just the practice of going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time has done me a lot of favors.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great for your body and your mind. Yeah. So this has been your routine for like just starting this year, right? Like starting this year. Good to know. Okay, and you're already seeing fruits and loving it.
Yeah, yeah. And one of those fruits has been voice acting.
Oh yes.
Part of the affirmation that I told myself every day for the first 3 months of the year about until I started writing my own affirmations was that I am committed to scheduling and following through today on the necessary actions that will ensure that I create the extraordinary life I deserve to live.
Nice.
And just repeating that to myself every day, it didn't take very long. It maybe took like a couple weeks of just saying this to myself and thinking, I've been meaning to get into voice acting for a while. I have a friend who I can reach out to who's an actor. Maybe she has a lead. And so I reached out to her. I just sent her an email. I was like, hey, how are you doing? I'm wondering if you have any more voice acting things. And she led me to her cousin who was doing that audio drama and ended up getting the part. And it has been super fun. And just finished setting up my voice studio at my own house last Saturday.
Nice. Okay.
Not 2 days ago, but like the other week.
Okay. Cool.
But yeah, just the power of just getting up and doing it, you
I
know.
love that. Yeah. No, that's real. I appreciate that a lot.
Of course.
I want to talk about, you mentioned your mission and like anxiety being a big part of your life and stuff. And it sounds like you've been intentional with working on that, especially social anxiety stuff. It's interesting because for me, I never experienced any like anxiety, depression. I had great mental health until like I came home from my mission, and it was like a year later or so. I was like doing sales, and then I, really struggled and stuff. And I'm in a great place now. But did you always have anxiety and stuff growing up, or was it just when you were put in like being a missionary that it like went crazy? Well, what's that been like?
Yeah, thank you for asking. That's a really good question. I would say my journey of anxiety, I struggled mildly with depression throughout high school. Junior high, I was actually like kind of crazy with it. I was like, I'll lighten the world. I was like, yeah, let's do this. And high school kind of came, and that started to fall off a little bit more as I, oddly, I think this is perfectly reasonable. Actually, it was just like I had put way too much stock into what girls think of me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because I wasn't getting the validation, that reflected on my, I allowed that to reflect on how I thought about myself. I would say that's about where the anxiety began. And my senior year of high school came. Before that, I had been like, if I could go on a mission today, like I would go, and like no problem. Senior year comes, and I'm like, I don't know if I can do this at the end of this year, because that's when my timeline was. I was planning to serve a mission right after high school. It's not difficult to talk about. Like I'm not like embarrassed about it or anything.
Yeah.
It's just the details are a little bit blurry.
Okay.
But you could definitely tell, like retrospectively, there was a lot of. You could tell the adversary was working on me, with just like not believing in my abilities, which the side effects of that and returning home early kind of lasted much longer than I thought. And honestly, I probably still see some side effects of that today that I'm still working on trying to get through. Once I was out in the NTC and I was in a routine and stuff, it kind of came more easily to me. But out in the field, now for context, I was in the Dominican Republic MTC. And And then for the actual field, I was in Guyana.
That's funny because I was in Barbados, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, and my mission also covered French Guiana. So
Wow.
I had a companion actually on my mission who was Guyanese. So I do have ties to Guyana.
Oh, that's so awesome.
So I do understand like the culture, and even though it's part of South America technically, it's very much like the Caribbean culture, and so I
Absolutely.
understand a little bit of the context. That's cool.
Thank you for explaining that because it's the hardest mission call to try to explain.
Yes, because I think it's the only English-speaking country in South America, I believe.
Yep.
But culturally, it's just part of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Like everybody, there's plenty of Guyanese people in the different islands in my mission, or I'm sure in Guyana, people from the islands that moved to Guyana. So, yeah, no, I know tons of Guyanese people actually.
That's so cool.
But okay, so you were, you had all these things going on, a lot of self-doubt, whatever. You're in a foreign country, MTC. That's where I cut you off. Oh no, going into Guyana. That's right.
Yeah, going to Guyana. And getting into Guyana, I did feel a little bit stranded in a way because they like held all of our passports at the mission home there, which I felt was like a little bit violating, like from the world.
I thought it was funny too, but looking back, I'm like, I don't know if I would just trust a bunch of 18-year-old dudes leaving the country for the first time. I don't know.
That's another way to look at it.
That's a good point.
But no, the real thing, and this is obviously in retrospect, what was killing me, and the reason I know, but I was only in the field for a month, was I was just not getting enough sleep.
That can mess with your mind. That can mess with your body, your
Absolutely.
emotions, everything. So,
And such a rigorous
yeah, schedule,
and
yeah.
and just the activities you're doing, the hot sun, like, we were just north of the equator.
Yes. Oh yeah, very hot.
Very, very hot and humid. I think I was there during the dry season, and it only didn't rain like 2 days while I was there.
tough.
But you were in the Caribbean too, so you probably know the feeling, right?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
So the sleep deprivation, whatever, was that like because you were so anxious, or was there other things going on? Just a bad cycle of both causing them?
No, I think it was just straight up like I needed to get to bed and wake up later, or get to bed earlier, wake up later. Just not recovering from the previous day, and that led to a downward spiral.
Yeah, valid. I mean, there's plenty of times where I'd wake up and my morning exercise would be me going into the living room with my companion while he exercised, and I just caught up on sleep a little bit. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of times I had to do that too, because yeah, man, it's tough, and it's hard to have like a one size fits all rule when everybody's so different and has different individual needs, right? Like it just everything. Yeah,
Absolutely, and that brings up another added stressor was that my companion, who I very much love and admire, was obedient almost to like fault. He was like the very model, like if you got paired up with him, like you were in for a good time, like you were getting some work done.
yeah, yeah.
And we did. We were on it, but I started to realize that it was becoming an unhealthy level of obedience when we were 1 minute late out the door, and my water bottle was halfway empty, and again, we're just north of the equator, and we're planning to be outside all day, and he was like, nope, you can't go back in and fill it up.
See, that's what they call looking beyond the mark, right? It's like, I don't want to go into too much detail, but yes, there's the spirit of the law, right? There's context. There's like, all right, if I'm here, as a missionary serving God, would God be okay with me being a little bit late for these arbitrary rules to hydrate myself? I think so. You know what I mean? Like, that's true. A lot of people I know also, I don't know, just kind of didn't understand that. They just only looked at like the letter of it and didn't understand the bigger picture and stuff. So
For sure.
that's tough. And that, I'm sure, added exponentially to your experience and your anxiety and your problems down there. So, wow. Thank you for sharing that, Matt.
Oh, yeah. Happy to, and thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah. You know a funny story? So, there's a time on my mission, actually, where I was getting on a plane from Barbados to Grenada. And the airport security is not prime. It's not America.
Sure.
And I was waiting. They had these two gates for a plane to Grenada and a plane to Guyana. And the gates are just like you line up and you walk onto like the asphalt and climb onto the plane, right?
Right.
So it's two planes. They're boarding at the exact same time. I was chilled at the airport by myself for like 7 hours, actually. And then another missionary came because he was also going to Grenada with me. And I was like, oh, how's it going, bro? So we're catching up, we're chatting, whatever. Like, okay, now board the planes. We're not paying attention. We're kind of chatting. We stand up, we go in line, blah, blah, blah. We end up walking onto the plane going to Guyana, which is not even part of our mission, hundreds of miles away in South America. And so we go and I can't remember, let me think. Oh, yeah. So we walked onto the plane. We sat down in our seats on a plane going to Guyana. And some lady bumps me like, hey, you're in my seat. I'm like, oh, sorry, let me go. I'm like, oh, wait, no, mine says this is my seat. She's like, well, mine says this is my seat. I'm like, what the heck? So we asked the stewardess, and she's like, your ticket says you're going to Grenada. I'm like, yeah. She's like, this plane's going to Guyana. I'm like, oh my goodness. So I had to get off the plane, run over to the Grenada plane, and then leave. Like, I don't know what I would have done if I got on a plane to Guyana, but
Probably.
I don't know. I'd find some stranger. I don't know. Maybe call my mom and then have them call my mission president and figure it out. I don't know. But crazy stuff, man. Yeah.
Yeah,
I loved.
mission life can be so wild because it's so I don't know, just it's way different from how you function as a autonomous adult.
Yes, extremely. No, it's a very interesting environment. And another funny thing is like my Guyanese companion. You know, this is a funny thing. I had to strike a balance with this guy. Is, you know, there's three things we could do. We could be obedient to the mission rules. We could work hard and be effective, or we can get along and be friends. And I could never have all three. I'd always had to pick one to sacrifice for the day, right? So I said, all right, if we want to be good friends, I have to either, you know, be lazy with him today, or just not be obedient with whatever that looked like. Or if I wanted to be obedient and to work hard, then he was not going to be my friend that day, right? And so it was kind of a balance every day. So many crazy stories I could tell you, man. There's times he like locked me out the house. He would like break things, like just the craziest companion, dude. And it's a great learning experience, dude. In hindsight, you know, it's fantastic. But it was really funny, and I just that came to mind because he's Guyanese, and I still message him like to this day. I talked to him a little bit, but kind of like how you said, of, you know, oh, you're 1 minute late at the door. That's a big problem. Is, you know, sometimes I realized, you know what, I gotta pick and choose my battles, and I don't think I was ever extreme like that companion you're describing, but I'd be like, sorry, elder, last name, and we're not gonna do that today. Like, we gotta be obedient. Like, no, man, he'd hate me, right? More the days, I'm like, you know what, you can do whatever you want as long as we can get out and go find people to teach. Like, okay, cool, fair. So he would just like listen to his music. Anyway, it was just fun stuff, man. Missions are crazy. It's a lot to learn to balance. But it sounds like since you've been home from your experience and all those things, you really kind of grown and overcome that anxiety. Something.
I definitely feel like two things.
Yes.
The mission experience I was supposed to have, or at least, you know, the growth that I would have experienced on my mission, I experienced in my young single adult board. I had a pretty amazing run as the ward choir director of all callings. Like, that was the one that was just like home run.
Heck yeah, dude.
Yeah. We had some amazing musical numbers, and I don't know, I feel like I really made an impact with that calling. Mm-hmm. Not that was the only thing, and I just got called to be second counselor in my eldest quorum presidency. So, you know, still serving, still happy to serve, still growing, obviously. But during those 2 years that I was home and where I would have been out on my mission had I not come home, I had to be home because my sister was also returning home from her mission that December.
Nice.
And she had a very rough mission experience. I had to be home so that I could support her, as well as my other sister who was dealing with some stuff with just previous traumas and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And also, I don't really have a problem sharing this, but it was a little more personal. Mm-hmm. At the end, if I had stayed out the whole time, and I get home in 2020, I would have had about 2 months to spend with my grandma before she passed away. And so I had to be home to have that time with her as well.
Yeah. and your sisters. So that's cool. That's really
multiple things.
That's good. You can recognize that in hindsight, right? You can never know in the moment, but later you're like,
Absolutely.
oh, glad that worked out the way it did.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of having experiences like that has led to a philosophy of just like, I don't know everything right now. This is kind of an interesting day to be doing this podcast because I've been talking to a girl for the past month or so, and she lives out of state. But we had a conversation yesterday where she said that she doesn't see us continuing things, which is a rough and disappointing thing to deal with, right? But the things that I've been doing this year have been strengthening me in such a way where it's like I feel okay.
You're better equipped to handle the harder thing because it sucks. All right, there's no, it sucks no matter what, relationships ending and that kind of thing. It sucks, period. But you've been better equipped to handle that. Sounds like
For sure.
very cool.
And part of that is just trusting God's plan.
Yeah. Love that, man. So, I mean, this is the people of Utah. It's been great getting to know you, and I want to get to know you more, but I do need to ask you things about Utah.
Sure.
To make sense. So tell me your favorite, I mean, you've lived in Utah your whole life, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Okay. Favorite thing about Utah and your least favorite thing about Utah?
Ooh. There's a lot to love about Utah. We have some beautiful nature. We have some brilliant people here. It might be easier to start with things I don't like. 'Cause,
Let's do it.
there's less of them, I think. It's a less broad category.
Shorter list. I'm with you.
But it's also the same things that I dislike about just the generally I guess you could call it Western. It's kind of worldwide culture. And I'm gonna get controversial.
Okay, let's do it.
But it's not political.
Please.
I'm gonna get assassinated for this. Dog culture.
Dogs.
Out of hand.
You think that's a Utah specific thing or just like a Western society type of thing?
I would say that's more of like a Western society, or maybe even Eastern. Like, I just haven't been to Eastern countries, so I don't know.
So dog culture, expound on that. What do you mean?
Yes. I think that the level of appreciation for dogs in particular has reached idol worship status. And part of my being able to see that is also realizing that I am generally afflicted by other people owning dogs. In that they prevent me from sleeping in my house when I want or need to, right? And also, I just shouldn't have to hear your dog in my house ever.
That's funny.
But obviously, I don't have a problem with people liking dogs. I just think that they are
a lot of negative dog experiences in your life.
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. What do you make of that? And how does your opinion relate or differ?
Personally, like I am not a fan of pets at all. I don't ever want to have a dog or a cat. Growing up, we did have a dog and a cat. I don't know. Like I'm glad that people can appreciate them, and it's great for them. And I do enjoy interacting with other people's pets. I just don't see the value in owning and taking care of one of my own. I also get that like you're at home and you can't sleep because of someone else's pet. I can understand why that would be frustrating, right? Versus like your own pet. It's like, well, I made my bed, I gotta sleep in it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, yeah, I agree to that to some extent. I don't want to ever own my own, but I can appreciate other people's pets, and that's
sure.
So I like that.
I gotcha.
Is it specifically dogs, or is it just like?
I've never been woken up by a cat.
That makes sense. Okay, so it is your negative experience with dogs. That's so funny.
I have been kept up by a cat. It was my own cat. She was in heat.
Yeah, it was bugging.
So I'm not saying like cats are perfect or anything, But man, dogs suck for everyone.
Typically dog. That's funny. I'm guessing you never had a dog growing up at all. Eh?
No.
Okay, gotcha. And you don't have any intention.
Say again.
You don't have any intention to.
No, it's I feel like compromise has to be made in marriage and stuff like that, but generally speaking, I don't feel like I have to get married to someone who needs to have a dog.
Yeah.
I think that would be a high stress, a high source of stress.
Yeah, I think the only scenario I get a dog is if like the kids and wife are totally on board with that, and I'm like, all right, but.
And then I take no craps from it, like
That's funny you said that. There was a time where my dad didn't want a dog, and when I was a kid, my mom came home with like a puppy because all the other kids were begging for it. My dad's like, okay, then. And like the newborn puppy like pooped in their room or something, and my dad, just to make a statement, again, this is not marriage advice for anybody, but he just like, dang, that sucks, and he just like didn't clean it up, and he knew it was there, but he just said, not my dog, whatever. And then my mom found out, like, you knew that he pooped in a room an hour ago and didn't do anything, and he's like, oh, I didn't want the dog, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, exactly. I'm like, dude, that's tough, but I can kind of understand that. And there's also a big difference between like well-trained dogs, like well-trained and well-behaved dogs. My sister-in-law and my brother-in-law both have a dog each, and they've done like some serious, like, expensive quality training. And it's like not, I mean, I guess it's a service dog too, but they do like the sports with the dogs, insanely obedient dogs. Like it won't bark and bug people. If it's going to interact with somebody, the magic word from the owner, it behaves. So I guess there is something to be said for well-trained dogs also playing a role in opinions of dogs. But
yeah, I have no problem with anyone owning a well-trained dog.
Yeah.
And it's the people who believe that dogs are perfect and, God's gift to humanity that are the ones that are letting their dog just bark outside all night or day. And that's why I say it has reached idol worship status for some people. People just think that, like, dogs can't do wrong. And it's like, sure, it's an animal. Like, it doesn't have accountability.
Yeah.
But people do.
Yeah.
And if you are going to... I don't know. I don't see dogs or some people's dogs as much more than just like neighborhood waking alarm clock, Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I had to give a gift to the world, it would be a neighborhood where dogs are not allowed.
I wonder if that exists, because you know how they do have like gated communities for older people with certain rules and stuff. It's like almost HOA type of thing. I wonder if there are like residential neighborhoods like that out there.
It's a good question. I wouldn't know too much about it, but I feel like the nearest one is in like Afghanistan or something.
If they ever opened up one, that's where you're moving. It sounds like.
At least I can sleep there.
Yeah. I know. Is there anything else about Utah on your dislike list?
Dislike. I would say there's room for improvement, and it's just a fact of culture that we've kind of come to accept. As members of the church, we've been told to minister. Mm-hmm. But largely speaking, it doesn't get done. I don't know if that's been experienced in your ward or in just your experience in general.
Yeah, no, I've not been on top of that at all, dude. Once it went from home teaching to ministering, I have dropped the ball, and so have most people, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think it's because there's something wrong with us necessarily. Yeah. I think it's a result of a culture of, we're very tribal, and our tribes are very small nowadays, where we are willing to exile people for thinking differently from you,
Well said. Yeah.
And I think that, based on things that President Nelson has said, as well as just my own opinion, that is not who we are meant to be.
That's way cool. And I think about that a bigger picture. Like, yeah, like we are travel, and we like to exile people who think differently. That is very interesting. I think that has, I don't know if it's just social media making me think this or if it is reality, but I feel like that's just been increasing and exacerbated the last several years is, like cancel culture or whatever. But it's just like the fact that, like, I don't know, if you disagree with someone, you can't have a conversation, you can't be friends, you can't interact with them. It's so true. It's very interesting because and that's a big thing I love about my podcast too, is getting to interview people and hear things and just talk with people and get to know people. I might completely disagree with them about something, but I do like to know why they think what they think. And it's also just awesome because I'm like, oh, dude, I think you're crazy. I don't agree with you at all, but you're cool. And I like it. You know what I mean? It's like having those interactions with people. It's so interesting. And I think it's a lot less common. Like you said, we like to X out people too easily for thinking differently.
And it's so, do you ever wonder if like the reason that we are so willing to exile people is because it's so easy?
Yes, natural.
Yeah, because the way that we're interacting with each other now is largely online or through text.
Yes, hiding behind a screen is
Hiding behind a screen.
a whole other thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great point.
And so we aren't cultivating face-to-face relationships, which I get the feeling is a privilege that we are not living up to.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's also crazy just how like generation to generation things change, but even like how fast like the childhood growing up experience just changes over the years, right? It's like from me to my youngest sibling, right? I'm like watching the same couple of VHS tapes for years growing up. And then my same sibling, same generation, at that age has Netflix and Disney Plus at his disposal. You know what I mean? It's like it's very interesting, and that adds to the school interactions, right? Now we have an even better Google. We have like ChatGPT to ask things and look things up for us. It's like more video games, social media, like I don't know, all these different. It's just becoming so much more convenient to have our interactions digital versus personal. I think that also plays into. It could play to people's mental health, I'm sure. It plays into people's social skills and all that kind of thing. It's just like, I don't know, very interesting how quickly things can change for people growing up. So,
Yeah.
but do you see that in your school a lot with the elementary kids?
As far as change is concerned,
Yeah, as far as, I don't know, maybe, I don't know anything about elementary school kids, but I just imagine like social interactions are very different than when I was a kid.
So as I said, I teach computers and STEM, and the classroom dynamics between the two are very different. Because computers, I can generally I have a website that they'll go to and like find the links that I want them to click on. They can do it if they're paying attention. They can do it on their own. In the STEM room, I don't have enough materials for everyone to have their own thing. And so they are forced, if they want to do it, they have to work together. And it is such a more stressful environment because I'm constantly like, hey, this person isn't letting me do this. It's not my turn. I'm like, I can't monitor every single situation that's going on. I don't know what happened. That's too bad. Sorry.
Interesting. So you think collaboration among each other's been more strenuous?
Possibly, but I've never been a teacher when I was their age.
Right, yeah.
It's so interesting.
One thing that I think is a little bit more prominent is I don't know if you could chalk it up to ADHD, but I think there's a perhaps dopamine epidemic, or not like a lack of it, but an overabundance.
100%. I'm with you all the way on that stuff.
Yeah. And that's why I have to keep my lessons like 30 seconds or less, basically, because if it's longer than that, they will come off track and be impossible to rein in.
Well, yeah. Why would my brain care? I can get the dopamine I need from a 10-second video. Why would I want to listen to you for 30 whole seconds, right?
Sure.
Versus like, in the past, in order to get that dopamine release for your brain, which is happening subconsciously, you don't realize. It's like you would have to lock in for something for a whole minute to get that dopamine in your brain. You know what I mean? And so it's like psychologically, subconsciously, why would we care to give our attention to anything more than 10 seconds when I can get those reward systems easier and quicker, right? And that just leads to a whole new array of problems. So
Sure.
I think teachers have it harder than ever, bro. I think it's crazy.
Maybe they do. But like I said, and I don't claim to be the best teacher on the planet.
Sure.
And I think I'm really good in some areas, and I struggle in others. Curriculum, for example, like I can figure out websites for them to go on, but you know where I feel like I really excel? When a student comes to me with a situation, with a social situation specifically, and I tell them how I would navigate, or like how they should navigate it, instead of fixing it for them.
Yeah. Smart.
That is when I feel the most proud as a teacher.
Yeah. You know what else is interesting? I think the way you teach kids and that sort of thing, fixing problems versus giving them the tools to do it. I think I don't know, I've said this forever, like the whole like teaching industry is so unfortunate and needs to have changes because I don't know. And I don't know the answers and the solution for this, but I wish that like teachers would be compensated way better and that the bar was also way higher because
To become a teacher.
yes, to become a teacher. Because I think it was Arizona recently where you don't even need like a college degree to be oh, actually, I guess if you're a teacher, you don't need it here in Utah either. I don't know what kind of teacher it is, but
I think you do in Utah, but Arizona, I might have to look into that because I'm like perfectly qualified.
Yeah, exactly.
I have more experience than the intern who was here teaching second grade,
yeah. It's just so interesting. It's like, and also I don't know if the problem is like, dude, these kids are so like snotty and hard to teach. No one wants that job, and so there's like a huge demand. Like, please, someone teach these kids. I don't know the industry, don't know the solutions, but I feel like ideally it'd be awesome if there was like higher qualification thresholds and consequently higher compensation thresholds, like any other industry.
Sure.
But I mean, I guess if most of it's government funded, perhaps that's a big part of the problem is that the government is not willing to allocate funds to the education system. I don't know the big picture, but
Sure. I think there could be multiple levels to the issue.
yeah, it's interesting stuff. But anyway, so Utah stuff. Got some of your favorite things, got some of your least favorite things. How about is there like a place you've eaten in Utah that you would recommend to everybody? That's just amazing.
I have very weak opinions of food.
Okay. That's a good point. I would say I'm easily impressed a lot of the times. So I'm not like a good food critic, but
I'm like, yeah, that was food. You can get food in Utah. One of my favorite things about it.
oh, that's so good. Okay. If there's nothing strong there, yes. Favorite place you've visited in Utah? Maybe it's a hike. Maybe it's a city, museum, anything.
You're bringing back so many memories from my teenage years of just going on camping trips and the works.
Yeah.
Obviously, Zion National Park.
Nice.
Big standout. Bryce Canyon, also beautiful. And this might be an odd answer, but like my living room is like kind of the place for me to be.
Nice.
Not-
Well, that's good. That
I don't think podcast viewers should visit there.
yes.
But no, I just genuinely really like being at home, and
It's fantastic.
it's a good place.
It's so good to create a space like that for yourself. That balance of people. Okay. I love that.
I love to have people over in it, and just I love hosting.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Good. So, I appreciate you opening up and sharing all these things with me, Jarom. Thank for being on. If there's, in closing, any piece of advice, if you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice, what point would you go back to, and what would you say to yourself?
Oh. Dang, there's a lot of places I would have loved to have given myself advice. I remember getting home from my mission. I'm 18 years old, and I'm like, all right, education and marriage, let's go. I'm 25 now and have done neither of those things. And the thing that I'm feeling right now is to tell my 18-year-old self to shun comparisons. Just recognize that your life is going to be different. And that's okay. It's perfectly normal and natural. And you can't make an impact by doing the same thing that everyone else is doing.
That's very interesting. That's great advice, because I think social media makes it way easy for comparison, and so we do it a lot more. We're hard on ourselves, and some, we want to fit in deep down desire. We want to fit in and be like other people and see the comparisons, but also at the same time we don't want to be like other people. We want to have an impact. We want to be different. We want to be special, and so it's an interesting dynamic where internally we want both these things. We want to stand out and be different and awesome. We also want to fit in and be good with people. So it's a hard thing for anybody to navigate, especially an 18-year-old. So that makes sense when you go back and give yourself that advice.
For sure. Can I add on to that?
Please, yeah.
So much advice I want to give myself. But, I would have told him to read the Miracle Morning.
Get that routine earlier.
Yeah, get that morning routine, but also one of the premises of the book is to take accountability for everything in your life. And that means you can choose to be happy. Take this situation with a girl from, super recent, last night. It's like, if I was here, like if I was a year younger today, I probably would have told you, like, hey, I think I need a day to just, like, can we reschedule? But just change your mind. You have permission to change your mind. You have the ability, you have the right, the privilege. Lovingly give yourself permission to change. And that means you can change to, it's part of the affirmations, what I'm thinking. Like you don't necessarily lie to yourself and tell yourself that I'm happy, but you can tell yourself, I'm committed to doing these things so that I can live the life that I truly want.
Interesting. I like that a lot, man. A lot of good advice to keep yourself. A lot of things you've learned. And we're still so young, dude. A lot more to come.
This is true.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you and being on the show. We didn't talk about it, but I want people to be able to look you up. You do like streaming and stuff, right?
Yes.
Is it video games? Like you're on Twitch? Or is it like a YouTube channel? Okay.
Yeah, twitch.tv/BacklogBros99.
Backlog Bros 99. Okay, cool, bro. Well, once you get big and famous, come back on and we can dive into that.
Interview
more.
too.
Let's go, bro. Awesome. Well, it's good to meet you, man. Thank you for your time.
And to you, James.
Take it easy.